Hello, my name is John. I know it's a pretty common name, so that doesn't help much. Fortunately, I have a distinguishing nickname, the Baptist, or sometimes they call me the Baptizer. I'm here today to tell you a little bit about myself and how I ended up the way I am, because the honest truth is, people think I'm weird. I do strange things. So, I'd like to explain myself, but I want to tell you about something even more important than my weirdness. I have been witness to marvelous things, great wonders, startling miracles, far more startling than my choice of food or clothing. That's what I want you to remember after you leave here today. But first, a bit about me. My parents were incredibly old when I was born. I mean, ridiculously, impossibly old. My mother looked like a grandmother already. According to her, and according to my father too, I came into existence only because of an angel's intervention. Someone needed to prepare the hearts of my people to receive their Lord and Messiah, and that someone was me. I heard this story again and again when I was growing up, of course. I knew it was my job in life. I think my parents thought it would be a happy job, like people would be eager and ready to receive their Lord. But that's not what I experienced. What I saw was people who couldn't care less about their Lord. They were too busy or too worried or too proud to pay attention to greater things like God or holy living. I'll tell you honestly, it made me angry. I was an angry young man, a furious young man. All I could see around me was corruption, from the lowest to the highest, the poorest to the richest. Everyone looks out for themselves. Everybody tries to accumulate as much power and money as they can. Everyone uses everybody else and throws them away when they're done. Ugh, not for me. That's not how I intended to get ready for the Lord. In the end, I had to exit city life altogether. I did what the prophets of my nation have done for centuries. I went out into the wilderness. I dressed in rough and uncomfortable clothes, fit for the outdoors. I went so far away from anyone else that there wasn't bread to eat, or wine to drink, or meat, or anything else. I lived off crickets and wild honey, and the water flowing in the river Jordan. I spent a lot of time alone, staring at that river. I imagined what it would be like to live in the flow of the water. City life, human company, business and religion and family, all of it made me feel dirty and wrong. Maybe if I jumped into the river, it could wash that all away. I reflected on how my people use water to make themselves clean. It is a standard part of our religion, and people who want to join our religion walk into water as a symbol of their joining up with us. All these uses of water were good, I thought, but not enough. We need a water that would wash the sin right out of us, all the evil and darkness and complicity and sneakiness. A water that would make us pure, not only in body, but also in soul. Well, I couldn't give that kind of water or washing to people, but at least I could show them their need for it. So I started teaching and calling out to people, come to the river and get baptized. That's kind of a funny word, baptized, but it just means to get pushed into the water. Normally my people would put themselves underwater during our religious practices, but I didn't think that was strong enough. None of us can fix ourselves. We need a power outside of us to do it. So I was the one who brought people into the river and pushed them under. Then, of course, I pulled them up again. I didn't want them to drown and die, but live to God. Over time, more and more people made the trip way out to my camp on the river in the wilderness. They'd heard about me. They knew their lives were all wrong and out of order. They asked me to push them into the water, too. That was great. I felt like I was really helping. But you know how, after a while, anything can become fashionable? Well, after a while, baptism became fashionable. At first, only sincere people who really wanted to change their lives came to me. But after a while, people came who just wanted to look good. They wanted to look religious without being religious. I was pretty hard on them. I told them what I thought of them. You snakes! Show me that you really want to turn your life around, and then maybe I'll give you baptism. My baptism is only for people who are really sorry about their lives and want to do better. I was so angry all over again. Here I went out to the desert, to a lonely place, trying to escape human corruption, but it followed me all the same. Is nowhere safe? Is nowhere pure? Who will rescue us from ourselves? Maybe you've noticed, I wasn't talking much about God at this point. To be honest, even I kind of forgot about God. I got so obsessed with my anger about human evil and so determined to keep my own practices pure that I, too, got distracted from my mission to prepare the people for the coming of the Lord. Well, one day, I had a real wake-up call when I realized that people were starting to think that I was the Lord. That really shook me up. That's idolatry. Me, John, the Lord, the Christ, the Messiah? No way. I knew perfectly well that I was just as sinful as anyone else, no matter how hard I tried to make myself clean. That's why I never left the river, to remind myself constantly of my own need to be purified. Needless to say, I put an end to the rumor about me fast. I am not the Christ. I am not the Lord. Look at me. What am I doing? Just dunking you into the water, reminding you to repent. But I can't actually change you. I can't fix you. God himself has to change you and fix you. When God sends his Messiah, things will be different. He'll be tough. He'll be fiery. He won't put up with your nonsense. He will get rid of all of you who are corrupt to the bone. Even the ones who aren't corrupt will undergo a painful transformation. That's how serious the situation is. Trust me, when the Christ comes, it will be hard times for all of us. And then, the Christ came, and he wasn't anything like I expected. I guess even prophets of God can be surprised by God. The Christ was Jesus. He was my cousin. I knew him growing up. My parents told me some amazing things about his birth, too, but I never really took them seriously. Jesus seemed so ordinary. He was very smart. He liked to talk to the teachers in our temple, and they talked to him like he was their equal. But Jesus just stayed in Nazareth. He lived with and among ordinary people. He wasn't a fiery young man like I was, determined to separate himself from all the bad people. Jesus said his prayers and studied his scriptures and kept the law, sure, but nothing about him suggested he was anything special. I certainly didn't expect him to come and visit me at the river. But then, one day, there he was. Jesus was hanging out with all the other people asking for baptism, the sincere ones and the hypocritical ones alike. He didn't seem to distinguish so sharply like I always did. And then I saw with a clarity I never had before or since. It's hard to explain exactly, but I looked at Jesus and suddenly I knew deep inside the core of my being, he's the one. He's the Christ. He's the Lord. He is pure inside and out. He is not a sinner like the rest of us. He is so sinless that our sin can't even touch him. He can mix and mingle with sinners and not be harmed by it. He's the one. I was surprised. It was the surprise of my life, I tell you. And then it was followed by an even bigger surprise. Jesus walked down by the banks of the river. He waded into the water, and he said to me, "Baptize me." I couldn't believe my ears. "Baptize you," I protested. "You're the one and only person in the whole world who doesn't need it." He just smiled. "Baptize me," he said again. Well, when the Lord asks you for something, you don't argue twice. I held on to that pure and sinless Jesus and pushed him under the water. When I pulled him up again, he was praying. Then something made me look up into the sky. It was like a door opened in heaven, and a small white bird came flying down. It was a dove, the kind we use for sacrifices in our temple. But I knew it wasn't really a bird. It was the Spirit of God, the Spirit of holiness, the Spirit that can make people clean on the inside, not just the outside. And then one last amazing thing. I heard a voice. It was coming from the door in the sky, and it said to Jesus, "You are my beloved Son. I am pleased with you." Then the voice ceased. The dove flew off. The heavens closed. And I was just standing in the middle of the river with Jesus. Everything was back to normal. And yet, nothing could ever be the same again, because now I knew that the Lord had come. And the Lord brought with him the Spirit of holiness. And from now on, baptizing wouldn't just be a symbol. And I wouldn't be able to choose people for it, based on whether I thought they were sincere or sorry enough to deserve it. Jesus showed me that his purity is so great that it makes people pure. The Spirit's holiness is so great that it makes people holy. Baptism isn't meant to separate the religious people from the rest. It's meant to strengthen us to get back out in the world, to mix with all kinds of people, good and bad, and everything in between, because God's purity and holiness goes with us. That's the real miracle. That's the reason to get baptized. That's why Jesus is greater than I am, and that's why I'm so glad that he is. Oh, now, If you'll excuse me, I have to head off. I have an appointment with King Herod. He wants to see me about something.